Okay, I think it is time for us to introduce our next session. Like I said, it's a bit more intimate. It is a fireside chat. I'm talking about global vision, local impact, building brands that resonate everywhere. And here to moderate the session, please, in just a moment, put your hands together for our host of the session. It will be Oisin Lunny, who is the co-founder of Galaxy of OM. And if you were on the stage yesterday, or here yesterday, you may recognize him from being up here. And joining him is the head of Europe for Canva. It's Duncan Clark. Hello, hello.
Hello, stranger. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Muchísimas gracias, Louise. It's lovely to see you.
How does it feel being getting ready to host a fireside chat?
Oh, wow. Well, it's nice to get such a lovely introduction. I can hear your
enjoy.
dulcet tones. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Okay. Hey, buona tarda, folks. Absolutely lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining us. So, we are going to talk about something that I think a lot of people at 4 years from now are very curious about. You know, how can you build a brand that is truly global? How can you build a world-leading brand that arguably everybody loves? You know, it's the kind of thing, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But we're going to hear how Canva have done it with none other than Canva's head of Europe, Duncan Clark. So thank you so much for joining us, Duncan. Bienvenidos a Barcelona.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Okay, wonderful. So Duncan, I feel it's quite a nice thing, just so the lovely people here in the Agora stage get to know you a bit. Can you talk to us a little about your background and how you got to be where you are, and what is it exactly that you do as the head of Europe at Canva?
So my background was as a data journalist and publisher originally, and that led me into visual communication with data. I then founded a company called Flourish, which is a visualization platform for charts and maps and data storytelling, very widely used by a lot of the world's big newsrooms and marketing departments in lots of corporates. We were then acquired by Canva, and to bring that data visualization expertise into the company, that was about 3.5 years ago, and I've gradually taken on more scope since then.
Fantastic. And in this 3.5 years that you mentioned, talk to us a bit about how Canva has changed and evolved as a company and as a real global force.
So I guess when Flourish was acquired, I remember the inbound email from Rob, the head of product there, described Canva as having 40 million users, which seemed like a huge amount at the time, 40 million monthly users.
Yeah.
We've just crossed 220 million. So I guess one of the things that's changed is just the sheer global impact. And that has gone hand in hand with Canva becoming more global as a company. We now have more than 400 people in Europe. Whereas 3.5 years ago, that was almost no one. So I guess we're becoming more global as a company. We're also focusing more and more on localizing the product for individual markets and trying to unlock the potential of each major market in the world.
Fantastic. And, you know, as we mentioned in our preparation call, I am somebody who uses Canva every week. I have a little radio show. Find me at oisinlunny.com if you'd like to know more details. But every single piece of marketing material for that show I make in Canva, and I have done for years. So it's very familiar to me. But I think in 2025, Canva means different things to different people. So could you talk to us a bit about the different aspects of Canva? Because you've obviously got B2C, which is somebody like myself on my radio show, but you've got a lot more going on besides that.
Yeah, that's right. Canva's very unusual in as far as it's used by 95% of the Fortune 500, so very widely deployed in businesses. But we also have 80 million people every month using it among teachers and students in classrooms. So it's very, very diverse. And that's not to mention everyone in between, all the not-for-profits, all the small businesses, all the SMBs. So it's really a very horizontal tool in as far as it's used by almost everyone in almost every context. And I guess the reason that we have ended up in that situation is that the need to communicate visually is very universal.
Yeah.
This isn't some niche thing that a certain segment of society needs to do. Humans are fundamentally visual animals, and we have incredible visual memories, we have incredible visual processing, and so the world in which maybe you and I grew up, where it was all black and white type documents, has given way more and more to the recognition that actually communication is done best visually, and social media obviously played a role in accelerating that, and AI is now playing a role in accelerating it even further. But yeah, everyone needs to design, everyone needs to communicate visually, and Canva tries to meet that need pretty universally.
Oh yeah, fantastic. So it's B2B, it's B2C, it's covering all these bases. That is quite an achievement. Could you share with us a bit your view of the strategy of growth and really how Canva has been achieving these incredible milestones that you mentioned?
Absolutely. I mean, the core thing really is building a really good product and setting out with a strategy that puts it into as many hands as possible.
Yeah.
If you have a big addressable market, you've got a genuinely useful product, then the key is making sure that all of those potential users find some value in it.
Yeah.
Because value will lead to not only conversion to customers, but it will also lead to evangelism. Like we have probably a couple of 100 million users every month using Canva for free, and a lot of those users, many of them will eventually pay. Some of them might pay on and off. Some of them will never pay. But as long as they're getting value, then they will end up taking the word of Canva and encouraging other people to use it. And that's been really the secret sauce for Canva's growth, is a very organic, very bottoms-up word of mouth, which is, in a sense, fundamentally more scalable than marketing budgets. If you can have the community of users generate more users, then that will always lead to faster growth than paying to acquire.
Absolutely. Okay, so you're speaking about the importance of having a brand with values at its core, but this begs the question: does culture eat translation for breakfast, for instance? Because on one side you've got very mechanical processes, you've got the nuts and bolts, the things that need to get done. On the other side, you've got the values at the heart of the company. I mean, how does this fit together? Say if you're looking at something like SEO, for instance.
So I think for any brand or any company to succeed globally, it has to have a sort of fundamental engine that is quite universal. And so for Canva, that is around ease of use, the universal need to design, and about the integration of many different things into a single tool. So Canva set out in a very fragmented design ecosystem where you would go to a font library and a stock photo library and a print shop and a graphic design tool and a layout tool, and you do all these different things. Bringing them together and making them easy is that universal engine.
Yeah.
But then if you want to succeed with that globally, then you need to nuance it for each individual market. Like the fundamentals don't change, the values and the mission certainly don't change. But if you think of what Canva includes, it's not only an editor that would need to be translated, it's also a huge content library. It's a collection of payment systems. It's a pricing plan. It's, as you put it, it's a lot of SEO. It's all these different things. And to localize holistically and to really win globally, you need to properly look at the product through the eyes of a local user and understand their entire relationship with it, from discovering it through, you might come to Canva in Spain through someone searching for some local festival that people in HQ have never even heard of.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's an SEO routine, but it's probably also a template collection. Like you've probably got a whole bunch of people in that country who want to start with a template about that. So it's about how do you stimulate local template creators to make sure the product is relevant. And in all of what Canva does, we fold that under a banner that we have called Truly Local.
Yeah.
The idea that a product can be localized in a sort of tokenistic way, or it can be truly local, meaning that it genuinely makes sense to that person, to that user, right through the user flow, from how much it costs, how much it is discoverable via local searches, through to what images pop up when you search in the library for breakfast. Obviously, breakfast in France and breakfast in Mexico are very different things. So localization is a whole universe.
Wow, wow. You've opened up a very fascinating can of worms right there. Could you talk a bit about how you actually achieve this? I mean, because you're talking about this balance of function, this balance of purpose and values and genuine local community. And, it's like you almost make it sound easy, but I know it's been a huge process. Talk to us a bit about some of the elements that you've put in place in terms of your progress, in terms of partnerships, and in terms of actually rolling this out on a global scale as you have done.
So I think what we've realized at Canva more and more is that once you've got that fundamental engine in place, you need to do two things. You need to keep iterating the engine. For that, it means adding, for example, in the last couple of years, we've launched whiteboards, we've launched videos, we've launched whole new features around presentations. So you need to keep iterating the fundamental thing in the middle. But what you also need to do is empower local teams to run with that and make it as relevant as possible. I'll give you one example. We have a big office in the Philippines, and originally it was quite a lot of back office stuff. It was quite a lot of template design. Really amazing team. It's now about 1,000 people. Along the way of the last 5 years or so, while that team's been growing, what happened is just more and more local usage of Canva, to the point where now almost 1 in 5 internet users in the Philippines use Canva every single month.
Wow.
So it's kind of enormously high penetration. And actually, if you look at how much we've spent there on marketing, it's not that much. But what we've had is this incredible team of local advocates making sure the product is relevant, making sure the templates are good, making sure the local community is engaged, making sure we've translated everything properly. And so that's created a bit of a sort of model for us where we think that if we empower local teams and we really empathize with the users in each country, then we can see really, really steep growth. And in fact, we're seeing that now more and more in Europe. We have 1 in 7 internet users now in Spain every month use Canva, 1 in 8 in France. So the numbers keep getting more and more mind-bending, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations to you and the team. This is exactly what I was hoping to hear. But you've also made some very impressive moves in terms of the growth of the company, the growth of the functionality. Could you comment on the pros and cons, if you like, of growing through acquisition and, how this fits into the Canva worldview?
So Canva has made about 7 or 8 acquisitions in Europe. I think that's probably related to the fact that it's an Australian company, and so its eyes are always a little bit more globally spread than perhaps an equivalent company from Silicon Valley. And the way that we tend to think about acquisition is that there has to be some product need. I mean, Canva is fundamentally a product company, so that it has to support the product. But in addition to that, it needs a very high level of instinctive trust among the founders of the acquired company and the Canva founders. Yeah. So when Flourish was acquired, we felt that very quickly. And what immediately became obvious to me was not only that this was a very good cultural fit, but actually Canva really needed people in Europe who could run with what they had already built. And the time zones are pretty brutal. Sydney to London in the winter right now, that's an 11-hour time difference. Oh. So there isn't a single hour of working day overlap. And so you can't run a company across that kind of time zone difference just by direct management. What you need to do is find people who you have an instinct would probably do roughly what you would do, and would bring a kind of founder mindset to it and would just get stuff done. And so I think that's one way that Canva has approached acquisitions, is that sometimes it can help you with global expansion. I don't think you'd ever want to do it only for that reason, but if that is in the mix, then that can be a really positive thing that's quite hard to hire for.
Interesting. Okay, that's so cool. So, what you're saying maybe is it's not only the functionality of the company, it's also very much the founder, their mindset, how they approach the world, because if you have this globally distributed team, you need the right team for sure. But let's talk about any advice that you might have for any of the founders in here, any of the startups, in terms of that approach to growth, because there are some approaches, it's all about the money. There are other approaches, it's all about building that kind of audience base. And like you say, love is infinitely scalable if people love your product. So, what advice would you have for the startups and the founders in the room?
I mean, I think there's the many different models to growing and scaling a company, but I think the Canva one that people can learn from is product obsession, really.
Yeah.
It's really having not an instinct that there's a market opportunity. I feel like often the most successful companies, they're not principally motivated by the market. They're motivated by the need. And like this sense that there's something really valuable that you could put into the world that you're pretty sure a lot of people would get value from. Now, it's quite easy to start like that, but then you do a fundraise with a VC who's incredibly aggressive on monetization. And a lot of companies, I think, they start with that kind of instinct and they end up being a little bit taken away from it by the realities of life, the realities of investors, and the determination to having put their heart and soul into a company to make sure it works commercially. And that's all fine, but I think where you see a Canva-shaped company is where there is a huge addressable opportunity, a huge user need. But the passion in the company is about creating something amazing that will serve that audience. And almost the monetization follows. I mean, if you look at Canva's global growth, like we were talking about before, it's a lot about that bottom-up engine of people having found so much value from the product, they think, you know what, I want to pay for it. It's not, they don't need to persuade me to pay. Like, I love this company. Like, this has really helped me. It's empowered me, and it's given me superpowers. So I want to help it succeed, whether that's by paying for it directly or whether it's by telling all my friends to use it. And it almost doesn't matter which. Like, if you're on a growth path, a certain proportion will convert to paying. Creating the user love is as important, if not more important, than creating the conversion. And so I think users have a much higher level of instinct for the kind of inner motivations of a company when they engage with it through its pricing page or its kind of free experience or whatever. They can kind of tell, like, is this company here to try and help me, or is this company here to try and use me as kind of fodder? And I think we often tend to assume in companies that that stuff is a bit invisible. I think it's actually way more visible. And one of the really nice things about working for Canva, just, what really feeling this here, you walk around a conference like this, and everyone comes up to you and says, I love Canva. And probably most of those people have used Canva at work, they've used it at home. Probably the majority aren't paying, but they have a sense that this is a valuable thing that they want to see succeed, and that counts. That that's the thing you can't buy.
Absolutely. I mean, on our prep call, the first thing I said was, I use Canva every week, and I absolutely love it, and it's brilliant, and thank you. And I say you get that reaction from a lot of people, particularly here. But I would love to get your perspective on what you think might be the differences between, a mediumly successful startup and a world-conquering brand with huge amounts of loyalty, as Canva is. Are there any things you can pinpoint that make the difference?
I think that, partly it's about that big addressable problem. And I say problem rather than market, like a big opportunity. If you set out doing something niche, it's probably never going to be world conquering. But in addition to that, I think it's about having a genuine mission to solve that problem and then sticking to that mission. That's one thing that really struck me when I joined Canva, is that the mission that was laid out at the beginning, which is to empower the world to design, still is absolutely the driving mantra of the company. It's not, you can bolt on a mission and values sort of retrospectively, or you can kind of bake them in at the beginning. And I think if you do that in service of an achievable, really high value, large horizontal opportunity, then that's where you see the potential for a Canva-shaped company.
Okay, fantastic. We have 60 seconds more or less on the clock. So what would you like to share about your future plans?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, like all product companies, we don't really give away too much about a launch before we drop it. But I will say that on the 10th of April, we have our annual Canva Create event. That's where we do all our big product launches. We have a lot of stuff dropping. So that's 5 or 6 weeks. You can tune in. A couple of million people watch this now every time we do it. So you can watch online. If you're really a Canva fan, you can fly to LA and join in person. But watch online and see what we're launching, and hopefully it will continue to add value to what you do.
Oh my goodness. Amigos, amigas, set your watches. 10th of April, I will be tuning in. How exciting. In the meantime, please join me in showing your appreciation for Canva and the wonderful Duncan Clark. Thank you so much.
Very much.